The spirits was in the house on Bo, like, come in the living room. Ain't nobody finna jump you. They was on him. Hey y'all, welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, I'm Cecily, also known as Bad Fat Black Girl. I'm a writer, I'm an entertainment journalist, I'm a trap feminist, and we need to talk about His House. His House, which is a new black horror film on Netflix. It just came out a couple days ago. It's basically about a refugee couple from South Sudan. The couple is played by Sope Dirisu and Wunmi Mosaku, who we all know as Ruby from Lovecraft Country, royalty, okay? So this couple is given asylum in essentially a haunted house in England, and it's actually a pretty solid horror film. But baby, when I tell you black men are always the weakest link, oh child. Before we get into all that, please give this video a thumbs up because it really does help your girl out. Also, make sure you subscribe to my channel. I talk shit here a lot. If you're a shit talker too, make sure you do that down in the comments, but be nice about it, please. Thank you. Now, let's talk about His House. Just so you know, there are going to be some light spoilers in here. Not anything that you maybe couldn't have predicted would happen in a horror film. I won't give away like the ending or like the plot twist or anything like that. But if you're the type of person who just doesn't want to know any single thing about the film before you watch it, then you should probably pause here, go check it out, and come back. So His House follows actually a pretty standard formula for the genre. You put some sad people in a new space and let the spirits get to work. Let them do what they do. Now, what isn't familiar about His House, which is so great about it, is that the sad people in this case are black people, specifically they're a refugee couple from South Sudan, as I mentioned. And they're not sad because of a divorce or some money troubles. They've been forced to leave their home for the fear of their lives after seeing countless people murdered in war in their hometown. They had to make this treacherous journey by land and sea to get to England in the first place, where they saw even more people die, including their daughter. And then they had to endure the subpar treatment and conditions that you get when you're being detained as a refugee, while just hoping that they would be approved for some kind of housing that they ultimately end up getting. And baby, the house they move into is raggedy. And when I say raggedy, I mean raggedy. That was a personal source of trauma for me myself, having to witness that. It's a terrible house. No one should have to live like that. There's this one scene, I think it's in the trailer, where they first move in. It's like a pizza box with just like bugs on. Moving right along. So obviously this couple has been through a lot. They're both kind of suffering from PTSD based on the experiences that they've had throughout this whole experience and transition. And you know, with trauma like that, as per the rules of the genre, the spirits could not wait. The spirits was like, hold my beer, baby. We got some new folks. I mean, the spirits pull up almost immediately. They're playing with phones. They're throwing fruit around. They're all in the walls. But Bo and Yall, that's our couple, they're experiencing these things separately. Initially, they're not experiencing them together. And that's kind of representative also of how both of them are dealing with their new transition into this new culture and this new world in England where they now live. Yall is definitely still grieving, you know, her home, grieving her daughter, just kind of still very much so attached to, you know, their very recent past. Also, can I just take a second? Because we need to talk about Wunmi's skin, okay? Because it's giving the softest leather, okay? It's giving melted butter with cinnamon syrup in it. Her skin is just, my God. Anyway, as Yall, she is not really rocking with England like that. She is still, you know, she still has a lot of her customs from back home. She still sits on the floor when she eats. She uses her hands instead of utensils. She doesn't really go outside that much. This is one really heartbreaking scene where she kind of ventures outside. She gets lost. These English black boys basically tell her to go back to Africa and kind of bully her a little bit. We hate it here. 1-star review. Would not recommend for her. It's not going well. Meanwhile, Bo is all about the assimilation. He is going to the bars and learning the soccer songs, baby. He then bought himself a $10 shirt at their version of what I can only assume is a Walmart. And he is ready for the world. He's also really trying to impress kind of their white caseworker and, you know, kind of a lot of their white neighbors, because he thinks that the quicker they assimilate and the better that they assimilate into this European culture, you know, the more privileges that they'll get, the more access that they'll have to resources and things like that. And on the surface, there's nothing wrong with that, but here's where we kind of get into men being the weakest link. Okay, because so Yall pretty very quickly realizes that there's something happening with the house, okay? And specifically, she's like, I think that we are being haunted by an apath, which is a night witch. And she tells the story of this apath who once like haunted this man who stole something from him and didn't know that he was stealing from an apath, and the apath kind of like consumed him. And she's like, you know, there's a debt that we need to repay, and you know, until we repay it, you know, the ghost the witch is here to stay, basically. But she also thinks that if they repay this debt, that they will be able to get their daughter back. Now, what you think Bowl had to say about all this information? The same Bowl who has been playing hide and seek with the ghost every night since they moved in. What you think he had to say? He say, nah, ain't no witch. We actually just need to assimilate. That moment in horror films is always the most frustrating to me, because I'm always like, that moment where there is one person who is like, hey, we have a serious problem, you know, the devil has moved in or something like that. And like the other person's response to it is just, well, what's most important is that we make it on time for work every day this week. Like, bruh, like, did you not hear what she just said? She just said it's a witch in here. Like, let's just say, even if you think that's a terrible idea, or that is silly, or don't believe in spirits, like at the very least, maybe try to seek out some help for her. Like, that should alarm you to the point where you don't just say, no, we just need to keep trying to assimilate. Bo says, ain't no ghosts. And I'm like, sir, the ghosts have been trolling you every night, sir.
I don't have any time for any gossip now. Eh?
Needless to say, Bo ain't trying to hear none of that. He actually thinks that they're just cursed. And so he actually takes the last of their belongings that they brought with them from South Sudan and burns them out in their backyard, you know, thinking that that will get rid of, you know, whatever malevolent spirit is in the house, including their daughter's doll, which was like the only thing that Yall had to remember her by. And do you think it worked? Of course not. Ghosts and spirits still all up in the house, okay? And actually, let's talk about the spirits in his house for a second, because the part of the reason why they were so scary for me is that his house does not rely on like those cheap jump scares, and you also don't really see like spirits kind of lurking in the corners like you do maybe like on Haunting of Hill House. No, like the spirits are there and they do not let up. There are some that you see in the dark and then you flip a light on and there's still another one standing right there, like staring right back at you. And for some reason, you know, I know that, you know, the main principle behind horror is that like you're supposed to be scared and it's supposed to build and build and build, and that the moment where you actually see the thing or the thing jumps out at you is supposed to be the release. But I don't know, for me, like I really like horror films where they really are having to like confront this really scary thing and it doesn't go away. It's not just a trick of the mind, like it's actually really there, like staring you down, just getting closer and closer. Oh my, I was shooketh, okay? I was shook. And like they were on Bo heavy. Like the spirits was in the house on Bo. Like, come in the living room. Ain't nobody finna jump you. They was on him. I will give Bo credit because Bo did try to go get some help from the caseworker. He did try to kind of advocate for them to be moved to a different housing assignment. Ultimately, it was denied. His caseworker is absolutely useless. Moving right along. Actually, no, we're not gonna move right along because the way white people appear in his house is so interesting. white people always end up playing such an important role in Black horror films because these movies are often trying to address the very real terrors that, you know, people of color are facing. Whether it be, you know, displacement, racism, capitalism, any of those things, appropriation, state-based violence, any of those things. And in these types of films, you know, specific white people usually stand in for like a system of white supremacy, which works to keep people of color in systems that in places and spaces, in situations that are dangerous, that are disenfranchising, and that just are not good for them, and they don't offer them any other options or way out. And they end up being gatekeepers that keep people of color contained in these very kind of volatile situations. And that's exactly kind of the role that the caseworkers played in his house. So much of the dialogue was about, you know, we need to make sure that, you know, people think that you're one of the good ones. And, you know, if you want to, you know, be able to work and make money and support yourself and actually start a new life here, it's very important that you don't make waves. And it's all very subtle, but the pressure of that when your other option is to return to a war-torn country is I can't even imagine. When Bo realizes that he's not going to get any help from those who have the power to help him, what does he do? He tries to find the apeth in the walls and tears the goddamn house up with a hammer. Child, the weakest link. When I tell you these men are the weakest link, we need someone has to mediate. Like, sir, what are you doing? You are doing nothing. Like, what are you doing, sir? Except damaging property that's not really yours. That's what you thought the witch was just gonna be in the wall like this. Like, oh, I didn't think he was gonna find me back here. Like, what are you doing? He literally got the hammer talking about, it's my house. It's my house. First of all, sir, no, it's not. Second of all, Yall was already like, I mean, we could just leave, like, because we can't find a witch. Like, what we gonna do? Now, I don't want to spoil the ending for you all, but I do want to take a moment to talk about like the one thing that I didn't really like about the film. I didn't really like the CGI and special effects that were in the film. I like effects that really present just a very fine line between like reality and, you know, paranormal or supernatural occurrences, right? And I feel like his house really kind of, they were giving like full Silent Hill in some of the moments, right? And there is a point in which we see the apeth. Now, again, this is a Black horror film about a Black couple from South Sudan. When Yall tells the story about the apeth, I'm going to assume that it's like a Black folklore tale. Why did apeth pull up looking like the Night King from Game of Thrones? I was like, who is this white man? Who is that? That was literally my only complaint though. Other than that, I thought that this movie was so good. Sope and Wunmi gave such amazing performances, honestly, like especially kind of straddling that line between like, you know, just trying to be resilient, but having severe PTSD, literally being haunted by kind of like the ghosts of their past in a kind of like literal and physical sense. I think Remy Weeks, who was the director and who wrote the screenplay, also just did such a great job of creating this entry point to address, you know, the issues of refugees and immigration and displacement and PTSD and trauma, and using like horror as a vehicle to do that. It was just brilliant. So check it out on Netflix if you've already seen it. I'd love to know what you think down in the comments below. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to my channel. I do this here often. And as always, thank you so much for watching.